Stream and the webinar has started. Hmm. Test, test, check one, check two. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Oops, forgot to mute the webinar. Hi everybody. My name is Alejandro Ibanez. Welcome to Leading with the Capital A, the name Ralph chose for my podcast seminar here on minorities and cybersecurity, otherwise renamed from the Spires side. I know Mary is watching for her comfortable seat and probably enjoying her time off after the Super Bowl on this part. I want to bring on one of my friends in the cybersecurity space, Mr. Rojan. And Rohan and I have known each other for over a year. He's one of the better pen testers I know out there in the space. Super funny and personable, and really does exhibit a lot of personality when it comes to exhibiting the best parts of cybersecurity. I'll let Rohan introduce himself real quick as well too, and I want to thank you all for joining. Rohan, take the stage.
Awesome. Thank you, Alejandro. It's great to be here. Just on a quick introduction on my side, my name is Rojan. I have been doing cybersecurity for about 7.5, 8 years now. Started pretty early in like high school time, and then just focused on cybersecurity in college. Did some cybersecurity club there, and then after that, moved more into a full-time role doing red teams and bug bounty for the last 4.5 years. And then 2 years ago, started my own security company, which does, as Alejandro mentioned, like pen test, attack surface management, red teaming, and all of that stuff. Fun stuff around cybersecurity.
Definitely. And I do want to highlight he is a great networker as well, because that's how we ended up getting in contact
Yeah,
at a good networking event.
yeah.
Uh,
It was last year.
Last year, for the y'all that don't really think that the businesses don't interact on the backside, it's really at those networking events. Well, thank you, Rojan, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to meet with me today. I know, especially with running your own business, that's a huge lift, especially with a lot of pen testing firms in today's economy. Like they're not always the easiest to be cost efficient, and you get most of them are being acquired left and right by major firms. So, especially finding a boutique firm that understands startup is definitely good to hear. I do want to start out with your early career that you mentioned in high school with cybersecurity and pen testing. How did that go? Like, so talk to us about that journey of jumping in.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting path that went from initially I wanted to go more in the medicine field, like be a doctor or something or nurse. But around sophomore, junior time of my high school, I started more into the computer science program, having gone through the AP computer science program during that, and slowly started getting into this programming, which then navigated more into just learning about different fields within CS. And one that stood out more was just like hacking related. But prior to that, I was trying to build my own games. So that was my first interest in computer. Was like, okay, I want to build games because that looks fun. I play games. Let's see if I can build it. But that was great. However, there was a lot of learning curves. But cybersecurity sounded fun where you're just breaking things. So that's where it kind of also started more of like, okay, I want to go and break things and I want to hack things. Not knowing a lot, I started learning different concepts of like web security, what that was. Still didn't know much about it. But during the process of that, in high school, we all probably have thought of doing this or have just encountered this is everyone is using some kind of a grading platform for giving you grades. I wanted to see if I could hack into it. Found a vulnerability there. I was naive. I didn't exploit it. And I just sent an email to the company saying, hey, I found a vulnerability. Here it is. Didn't hear about it for a month. Then soon, a month after, my school principal is calling, like, is in my class and is like, hey, I want to talk to you on the side. And it's like, okay, the company that you reached out to said that you had a vulnerability on them and they want to talk. So they flew out, came to my high school. We talked for about a few hours, just explaining the vulnerability, showing them how it worked. And at that point, I was still learning a lot. So I learned a lot during that meeting just from them because it was their security team in there. And that helped kind of encourage from a high school point of like the school
Mhm.
wasn't saying, oh, you found a vulnerability. How dare you? Why are you doing this? It was more so we see a potential talent. Let's encourage this. Let's make this happen. Like, let's make something out of this. Soon after that, the school could be coincidental. It started a cyber patriot program. So that's when the
Uh,
actual cyber thing for me started. It's like, okay, I'm already interested in hacking, might as well join a competitive experience for it. And that's where everything started rolling. It was like, okay, it's more on the defensive end. We need to find ways to secure a Windows box, a Linux environment, a website, and all of that.
your lockdown list. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, get that lockdown list, get into different tiers within the competition. So that got me way more excited. I was like, okay, this actually has potential. The school is encouraging it. They're investing on it through the Cyber Patriot program. The teacher that we had, our advisor, was driving us to competitions as needed. So because of that, I was like, why not just focus on this? And since then, going back to college, same thing happened. When I went to Cal State Fullerton, I noticed they had a cybersecurity club. So I joined that and then was active soon after. And everyone was open to learning. It made a lot of like the environment itself helped a lot to keep going at it. Because cybersecurity in general, if you, my opinion, like, is that if you don't have someone that you can work with, if you don't have that network build, if you're not meeting with people, like similar mindset, could be in a different field within cybersec, it's hard to learn and grow. You can burn out fast. You can also encounter imposter syndrome pretty heavily if you're doing it alone.
That's
So
real.
being able to be in that group helped a lot for me there.
Yo, I'm glad. That's a very, very interesting start. Like, okay, I would have just explored it and changed my grades, but that's between me and everyone. Like, I know my company, Skyward, hated to see me coming. Oh, I think now the kids have infrastructure and Canvas, which hey, they are better at web app, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna date myself when I say I had used Blackboard.
Oh yeah,
And
that's I think funnily enough, another hacker I know did something similar where he found a vulnerability in Blackboard when he was in college or something around that line and reported it to them too. So a lot of like similar background with the hackers coming in out of like university colleges, always trying to break the school system first.
it's the best place to start. Mine was
Yeah.
those. That's how I got into network level and started messing around. I was like AP and like,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate that. That's a good pass, especially getting in. Can I ask if so that was your first personal experience? What was your first business experience when you started making money off bug bounties and stuff like that?
So that was kind of a shock for me that it was possible to do it.
Hmm.
I still like there's two analyses that I'll give to that. Is first, when I was learning cybersec and I learned about bug bounty, the first platform I found was HackerOne, which was like one of the I think the first companies to start building a bug bounty platform. But I thought it was a scam. I was like, there's no way they're gonna let me hack, let's say Uber, and then pay me for this. It didn't make sense at that point. So I kept it away for a bit. And then one time I was just, again, learning and researching, and I reported one vulnerability to Uber, which was just focused on, hey, you have this MX record for email servers that is acting up. It doesn't seem like it should be set it up this way. And during that time, the Uber team reached back and said, this looks potential, but we cannot tell the impact yet. We want you to go further. So I went and just started reading documentations of that specific platform, which in this case was SendGrid, which is what Uber was using to send marketing emails. Turns out there was like a global misconfiguration on it, which
Okay.
just I just happened to be accidentally jumping on it, was able to like claim Uber's own subdomains and domains into SendGrid and listen to emails coming in. So I sent that to Uber, wasn't expecting much. I was like, okay, I'll probably get like $500, which is still a great for like a high school college student, but it ended up paying the max of Uber bug bounty doing that. So when I received that, I was like, oh, this actually happens. This works. So from there, it's like, okay, let's just start focusing more on doing like heavy-handed research around those kind of topics where it could be a supply chain issue where like SendGrid has a misconfig that could abuse or affect all the other customers. So for me, first getting that bounty was a great success. But then what came after was I published a blog post, and I believe Uber also disclosed a vulnerability publicly regarding that specific finding. And then soon after, I was getting messages from folks that are top in like the bug bounty at that time and still are. And they were like, hey, this is a crazy finding. And then another person would be like, this is great, but I also made it worse by like finding a bypass to this. And just being able to like message those and people that I was like, oh, I love their blog posts. I want to learn from them. Messaging me was like, okay, I'm in the right place. I need to keep going at this. This looks amazing to explore further. So the first bounty was definitely a big encouragement that. And then after that, it was like my first technically kind of goes into networking. My first job out of that was also working at HackerOne. So I applied for a job when they first started their triage program, having known the platform at that point, and I was not expecting to actually get it, but it ended up working well. I did part-time, like full-on triage service for their managed services for all the bug bounty programs for about 2.5 years. So that kicked off going more into the business and professional side that like kicked off my career for whole security side as well.
Dang. Good on you, man. Especially coming out of the gate with bug bounty. Oof.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's transition to like the Rojan of today, the modern man who is now CEO, co-founder, doing pen testing. What does your day-to-day look like in your normal work week? Like,
It,
how does that work
it's
for you?
it's different depending on days and like how things are going. Some days there is just more building the platform, building what we're building at the company, and just a lot of engineering stuff. But then the other part of it, which I didn't realize when starting a company, is when you move from like a technological background of just building and hacking, you also have now when you start a company, you are responsible for your own salary. You're responsible for the company expense, which means
Yep.
you have to bring revenue. And that's the side that I didn't have to explore before because I'm working at a company that already has revenue. I don't have to worry about it. But now it's like, okay, I have to find ways to network, find ways to do talks, find time to go and do research that I can then present at a conference and hopefully use that as a networking way to bring customers into the company. So there's a lot of like administrative and sales aspect that I'm still learning. It's still watching YouTube videos, looking at blog posts from other entrepreneurs like YC Combinator websites, all of that fun stuff. So that takes some of the time as well. But the other part of it, from more on the engineering and security, there's still a lot of research. Like one thing I'm making sure as I'm running the company or working on the company as a co-founder is where we are not just using our old knowledge. We need to keep adapting. There's going to be AI changes. There's going to be a lot of different exploits and vulnerabilities comes out, and we don't want to be a company where we're running from what we knew 3 years ago. Because that's a lot of like the current cybersecurity old companies that are slowly not necessarily dying out, but are stalling and are being taken over by like startups or even like rising Series A, Series B companies, is because there are people there that are heavy into research, that are heavy into R&D, going and finding new things versus the older companies are just sticking with what they had built and are slowly being taken over. So we don't want that to be our case. We just want to keep expanding, keep finding new things, new vulnerabilities, both for our customers and marketing. So that's where the other half of the time gets taken to as well.
Yo, that's no, that's super real too, especially when it comes to choosing a new pen tester. You want to get somebody who's relevant, who's staying on
Yeah,
the cutting edge and being like, hey, you understand how folks are gonna sing, pull and push.
yeah,
And the last thing we need is another 14-year-old from Siberia
yeah,
who happens to have the time that day to be like, yo,
yeah.
I figured this out. And I'm like, yes, you did. And you ruined my day.
Yep. The other part that I'll add, like the trust factor is a major thing. Like coming into starting my own company and doing even networking early on is like, while I might have that bug bounty presence, I might know folks in bug bounty. How do I translate that into a trust for other startups? Or when we go to customers, how do they like, they might not be able to just be like, oh yeah, I know Rojan, he does bug bounty. That might not always be the case. So that's been a big part of just like building that trust, working with them. Like some of our customers have translated just purely based on trust. It's like we've known them since bug bounty time. They know about our work, and they're like, okay, we can trust them enough. So that's yeah, the trust part I hugely agree on. It's like the biggest factor that's gonna break or make a company too.
Hey, okay. What surprised you in this field? Like, I guess going from being like more of a paid hat and sitting at like HackerOne and playing these like more of like individual contributor role into becoming a CEO leader role.
It's the biggest learning curve has been to be more extrovert, more sales, but in a
Mm,
trusty way, where it's like coming from an IC role, even just doing bug bounty, it's easy to just focus on your work, keep building, keep breaking, and then go present a conference. You don't necessarily have to worry about how do you present, like how do you go and network, find new folks to meet with. You naturally meet IC folks, you meet them at different like conferences and stuff, but with the sales, it's a different thing. It's like companies, as you reach out to IC folks, no longer see you as like, oh, this is an engineer reaching out. It's like, no, this is a salesperson reaching out. So that's been a learning curve of like, how do I balance that when I reach out to make sure I'm not selling first? It's still being empathetic or sympathetic, depending on the situation for the customer. Like
mhm.
if they have just been through an incident, we don't want to just directly message them being like, hey, saw about your incident. Let me sell you a product. It sounds like, even from an IC role, it's like, this is a bad approach to do. So being like, how do I balance that while trying to help them, but also not coming off as salesy? Because if they go to my LinkedIn, they're like, no, he's a founder at a company. He's trying to sell me stuff.
He's trying
He
to sell
doesn't
me
really
something.
care about me. So
It's the
that's
difference
been,
between going to spam and being like, okay,
yeah,
I'll give you 5 minutes.
exactly, exactly. So that's been a huge like for the last even last 2 years. I still don't think I'm a perfect salesman in terms of any way for our product and stuff. mainly because like there's still so much to learn. Being
Man, give yourself credit though. You got me was in the first punchline. I like it was funny because I'll give you props on that one. I'll say like you I was looking for I don't forget. I think I was looking for like 16 different pen testers at the time and like you stood
yeah.
out in person and I was like, okay, fine, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's why I love like when you mentioned networking is a key part. It's like that's why I love conferences now. It's like you can meet people and just be your true self versus like if I were to just message you on LinkedIn initially, right? It's hard to trust what's coming out from LinkedIn and email because you don't necessarily know that person versus
yeah.
meeting in person, talking about like what we are doing, what we're building, that brings that trust factor. So that was definitely that was like a big learning thing for me. That kind of clicked. So this year for us, we're like, okay, we need to be at conferences. We need to go and present more, just because that's where you can build a lot of trust.
Oh yeah, we're hitting a year now. Yeah, yeah, you're right. 'Cause
Yeah.
it was B-side Seattle last year.
Yeah.
Oh, that is correct. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna remove the nostalgia real quick and we'll move more into like let's give some questions. I know that the aspirers love to message me after on Discord and they're like, you need to ask more about skills and breaking in and how do I become this person? And I'm like, okay, okay. So this is my little shout out to the ones on Discord where I'm like, let's talk about your technical skills right now. Or maybe let's focus more on the technical skills in your early career and how you like got where you were today.
I think
Oh,
so. For a lot of a technical side, I will say with cybersecurity, there's two things. Is it's a big field. The more
mhm.
I learn, like even coming out of high school, I was kind of focused on like I just want to hack things because that's what I thought cybersecurity was. But there's way more to it, right? Even like risk management at this point, or even application security. You're not necessarily breaking things; you're defending things.
Yep.
So from the technical side of it, I will say figure out like a couple of the inner fields of cybersecurity that will interest you the most that you think you can like focus on, not burn out, you can learn from other folks, and then start finding technical resources around it. So, for example, if we were to go into the hacking side of it, there's resources like Hack the Box. HackerOne has its own CTF that you can use. When I was at university, when we ran the cybersecurity club, that's something like my president and I focused on is let's train our people into real life situations. So what we would do was we'll give them Hack the Box, we'll train them for a month into different boxes, we'll solve it ourselves, share that resource with them, and then walk them through. And then we'll also create our own challenges and give them those challenges to then go and pass the test in a sense. So Hack the Box is like a major, major success, I think, if you're trying to break into either application security, anything offensive related, even defensive, because it will teach you those sides of things. So it's a great hands-on knowledge.
Hmm.
One thing I like about Hack the Box, again, I keep bringing it, is because it's technical where it doesn't teach you of just like learning about what an exploit may be. It's like it forces you to go and exploit something, escalate your access. So you cover a variety of knowledges with it.
There you go.
So they are like a big, I would say that that would be my first one I would recommend for anyone trying to break into hacking related field of cyber. If you're trying to go more into defensive side, there's a lot now, especially with AI, there's a lot of like coding training websites that will train you to find vulnerabilities in an application code. So that becomes a great learning point when it comes to scaling on the application security side of things. Like that's something we I used to do when I was in Tinder or Match Group is in our internship interviews. We used to hand over like, hey, here's a code, find a vulnerability on it. And the idea there is you want to walk through, you want to understand the code. So there's a lot of these websites, I think like Cyber Code Warrior, I believe is one of them. There's a couple other websites that will allow you to just look at a source code, identify vulnerabilities, flag it, and go from there. So those are like great resources to go with. They will help you a lot in terms of building that knowledge. It takes time. It is not like 0 to 1 today things, but they also build it based on that, right? If you go to Hack the Box, they have beginner level, they have expert level, and you can slowly unlock each of them as you go. So it's a great resource there. I'll say those like Hack the Box would be my biggest one. HackerOne CTF, I believe they still have it, is a really good one as well. Previously, it also used to give you private program access, which was really great. It's like if you solved 10 challenges, you get invited to a bug bounty program. That's a private
Okay.
program as well. So it gives you more of a leverage. And it also, it's like gamified at that point. It's like you are encouraged to solve because you have a chance of hacking on a real program out of it. So those are some really good resources. The other part that we did going like reflecting back on when we ran the cybersecurity club is also just exposing yourself to VDP programs or vulnerability disclosure policy programs that have those. not necessarily encouraging like free labor here of like go find a vulnerability and report to like a multi-million billion dollar companies.
I'm gonna
But
pause you real quick.
yeah,
Do not do the AI slop of
yeah,
using
yes,
Claude AI and all these stuff and just submitting a slop like a slop
yeah,
report. You will get banned from these blog programs
yes, heavily.
very quickly.
Yeah.
Sorry, just a preface. Continue.
No,
I get.
that's the other part of it is like the technical side of it now changes, right? With AI, it's like you could just go and give something to AI and it will say it's a vulnerability and you're just gonna go paste it. The idea is like, no, if AI says it's a vulnerability, go and try to exploit it, learn from it, make sure it's the case, and then you report it. Because when you go report to a company, there's a human person triaging it. You need to be able to communicate with them. Exactly, like having that soft skill without the like you can have a technical skill, but you also need a soft skill to communicate what you found. So VDPs are good where if you want, you can go and practice the knowledge of like, oh, I want to like, let's say you learn today how to find assets around a company, their subdomains or their websites. Then you're like, okay, I've learned this. Let me go and try it on this company that I know allows or receives vulnerabilities. Because that way you can test, like, did I actually learn this? Does this work? And then from there, you can slowly expand. You could do the same with bug bounty programs. There's a lot of public bounty programs that pay thousands of dollars that have everything they own in scope. Like, for example, if we look at PayPal, from what I remember, PayPal allows any assets they own under the bug bounty program. So a challenge there could be, okay, I learned how to find assets. Let's see if I can just find assets about PayPal, what domains they have, what subdomains they have, what web assets they have. And then from there, as you learn different security issues about or like different categories of vulnerabilities, you can go and try that in PayPal. And if it works, you want to learn about the vulnerability. Second, you'll get paid pretty solid amount at this point.
Oh, always. Yeah. And it turns out too, this if you have extra time, and it's like I know Rojan talked on like don't do free labor at the same time. Like this is skills you can learn and be turned into actionable items that can go on your GitHub
Exactly.
resume. They can sorry,
Yeah.
GitHub portfolio that can go on your resume. Like as
Yeah.
long as you're in the public disclosure side, don't break an NDA if you sign one for a bug
Yeah.
bounty program and disclose the vulnerability before the company has a chance to
Yeah.
patch or fix it. But if any of these get published or you find something, like it becomes a major resume unblocker. You'll notice
Yeah.
interviews come by.
That,
Like,
or sometimes you just get hired by the company you're reporting to. Like just networking and like I think Bug Bounty is also a great networking resource where if you report to a company, you're consistent, you are rising on their leaderboard, you're sending like critical and high severity, it will stand out. We like, as an example, when we're looking for interns at Matt's Group or any other place, we would look at like, has this person found something in the past? Doesn't have to be bug bounty oriented. Have they gone and done like a research or presentation? CTF is another great resources for it. Having those stands out mainly because it shows you're going there to learn. You have those like you have translated what you learned into some kind of a practical knowledge set. Similarly, like once you start working with a company in a bounty side of it and you are sending vulnerabilities, it's easy for them to be like, hey, like you're already sending us criticals, we see that you are in like college, you have mentioned that before, or we have seen your profile. Let's bring you full time when you graduate. I have heard a lot of stories about that where people have converted from being a bug bounty person to that company to becoming then a full time role at that place too.
no, and I agree. I have an intern guy who keeps messaging me on my work email account, and he finds fun stuff from time to time. And I'm not gonna lie, the moment I have budget, he'll probably be my first pick. Like I'm like, you know, our product sometimes better than I do. Don't know why, but you know,
Exactly.
appreciate it. Okay. Speaking of early time and advice and stuff like that, let's go back to like your own career early on. What's one thing you wished you would have done earlier? And like I know we live no regrets, and we're very much like we're the people we are today.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you go back, what's one thing you would have done earlier?
I think a lot of it would just be networking and meeting people
Hmm.
and just having that, not necessarily just relationship built out, but also just knowing like personally knowing a lot of folks that I still work with, but it was like, for example, some of really good friends that I have from my Maths group side, I wish I met them before because they were also in Buck Bounty. But I
Hmm.
met some of them as I got into Maths group and now we like hack together and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I wish I worked with you like before Maths group. It would have just been a great experience and fun stuff. The other part is always like it's kind of a learning lesson, not necessarily a regret, is never be worried about having challenges and just explore like whatever interests you in cyber, as long as it's not on the let's go and break the law side of it.
What do you
explore those
mean?
challenges. Just like have fun. And it's like cybersecurity can be daunting at times, can be draining. Like once you
Yeah.
go full time, incident hits, you have to wake up at 4 a.m. So when you have the time to learn and enjoy, like enjoy and learn different fields of it, that's the other regret I have. Is like I focused a lot into AppSec and red teaming and hacking, not necessarily into like compliance, GRC, risk management stuff. And now when it comes to work, like sometimes we have to deal with that. And I'm like, oh, I wish I learned about this or focused on these too, than just focusing on like bug bounty and hacking. So
I'll
definitely
say
explore the other fields.
the grass is greener where you water it because ironically my own answer to this very question was going to be I wish I spent more time on the apps
Yeah,
and
just
technical side. As your
exactly.
GRC bestie, as I like to call myself, oh, is definitely a fun aspect. And I agree. Like, yes, same question. You have two people in front of you today saying make sure you understand the depths, the breadth of
Exactly.
cybersecurity and not just the depths. I know my prior advice on these sessions have always been like, hey, understand what you're doing and specialize,
Yeah.
but gain exposure into other fields. You should be able to moonlight across the domains
Yeah.
and be able to say,
Especially if
hey,
you're like early on in the career and still learning, get definitely go like depth first, learn a specific field, but have that overall knowledge of like all these fields, like how they work, what are the importance one of the field, and then how to scale on that field as well, because it will help a lot as you focus on like a specific area. Because sometimes you might be like, oh, I'm burnt out from this, I want to jump somewhere else. It's easier to jump with some knowledge than to like jump with no knowledge within that area of cybersecurity.
and we'll jump into a little more. Um, you hit on an advice. You're one of my guests that does a really good job with advice to people. You just have to pull it out of the. What do you feel the common misconception with our roles, like, with security, with GRC? I think you touched on it earlier in the conversation. Like, I got really into hacking because that's what I thought cybersecurity would be. What
Yeah.
is the reconciliation with the reality of your current job and your role in cyber?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest one is like people think, and this is both because of like media, how it is like perceived in cyber is like, oh, it's all hacking related. You go and break things. One of the biggest reality check that we usually get once you get to a like actually full-time role is, yes, hacking could be great. You're finding vulnerabilities, but if you cannot communicate any of your findings, whether it's in hacking related, compliance related, AppSec or any of the role, you still have to be able to translate that into something business oriented. How does that in the end impact the business? It's a vulnerability that you found going to destroy the business tomorrow, or is it something that we can fix, let's say 6 months down the line, and it doesn't impact the underlying business? Because in the end, everything is, especially if you're working at like large organizations, it's the idea of if you fix this today, yes, it could be great, but is it costing us anything? So you have to be able to communicate any of your findings into that business level stuff. Same thing like in a bug bounty, that's where bug bounty teaches you a lot is like being able to explain the impact. Um, Something we saw a lot in the pen test that I would see previously, or even from customers now when they previously have had like pen tests from different companies, that's where a lot of companies don't necessarily translate really well, where they will find a vulnerability, they'll report it, but then it's like, what's the true impact of it? Could that have been escalated further and just cost the business millions right away? So being able to translate any of your findings, same thing goes on compliance side, right? Like you could have a compliance thing that could completely stop the business tomorrow, but if you cannot communicate that well, that could be a back burner and then comes biting them later on for like when they try to go sell to an enterprise.
Oh, and we see it all the time. It's building the trust center. Now you have whole startups that are built on this.
Exactly.
Yeah. How quickly can you build a trust center? How quickly can you trust? Because now
Yeah.
I know I say this a lot, y'all, and I think I haven't said it publicly on the actual live stream. Is SOC 2 is a scam. It
Yeah.
really sorry, SOC 2 is not a scam. SOC 2 is a multi-level marketing scheme that will probably be the I shouldn't actually the AICP is gonna come for me on this one. Oh, the SOC 2 is not a scam. The SOC 2 is a wide range of controls that is whatever you want it to be that
Yeah.
are applicable controls to you. However, they encourage downstream compliance by making sure that I only partner with other SOC 2 companies.
Yeah.
Oh, with that, I'll say is that it's to go on to it, it's GRC is a very wide and impressive, like, you have to trust, you have to verify, you have to go
Yeah.
through and make sure that you understand what's going on. If you
Yeah.
don't, you get yourself into problems.
Yeah. Exactly. So like communication is the biggest part. Like cybersecurity is not just hacking. I think the main thing is if you can communicate well, you'll succeed. The same thing goes technically in all the fields, but for cybersecurity, that's a big thing. It's like you need to be able to communicate well. That's not necessarily saying like language wise you need to communicate well. It's more so can you translate your findings to more of
Yeah.
a business impact?
And I go to add on that one too, and this is probably more of like me being petty and personal from the last news article type of thing, y'all. And I know you read the article at some point. Um, it's understanding if you can gain a sphere of influence in your realm. And I always say this in all the like aspirers calls. Influence does not come from your authoritative position. Influence can come from any position in the org and how well you can convey urgency and
Yeah.
importance. Yeah, and like really leading with confidence here on this part. And that's something like I look for in my vendors, I look for in my team, I look for everywhere else where I'm like, I should want my IT support team to care if something goes out of like SOP. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, because I'm like, I'll listen to my help desk person and be like, oh, you think this is serious? Like, yeah, then I do too. And if you can communicate that and
Exactly.
well, to gain stakeholders quickly, or like at prior organizations that were megacorps, if I said like, hey, we probably shouldn't do that, but didn't have time to explain, I could get people to wait for months before implementing that. And especially in a corporation that's known to sync fast and break things, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's your goal is to build influence, build credibility, and be able to influence using your communication skills and taking it to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. So we're on for another 15. I want to make sure I have room for questions as well, but I want to make sure I have like goals for clarity and stuff like that. You recommended tons of resources. We didn't talk about mindset. I feel like mindset is a huge part of cybersecurity, and like the mindset that you had of being curious, growing, starting with like your early journey of like, hey, I found a vulnerability and I explored it and went through.
Yeah.
What's the modern version of that today? What does that look like for you in your current business, your role? Because I'll say this, it takes a level of Delulu to be a founder,
Yeah.
but you have to have a mindset to like or go and start a business, be like, hey, I can do it better. I can be there.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to poke fun, but I'm saying you have a mindset. I want to explore it. I think it's one that students should start building now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'll say, yeah, I agree with you being like being a founder, co-founder is being delusional because you're going there and trying to sell when there's probably incumbents there, or if you're buying like a new idea or new innovation, you need to then go and convince people to be like, no, this is great, you should buy it. Right. So it is a little bit of delusional there. The biggest part of it, I'll say mindset for any security role, or even if you're trying to start your own company, is making sure like you know and you appreciate challenges that comes to you, like being open to getting challenged. Not necessarily by like it doesn't have to be being challenged by a coworker, but more so AI brings a lot of things where now everything is changing. You need to be able to
Yeah.
adapt with cybersecurity, like being able to find vulnerabilities faster or being able to analyze things faster. Just doing everything manually may not be the answer every single time. So adaptation when you get a challenge, not being like, oh shit, I have like a challenge, I need to back out or something like that, is a key aspect to it. Being curious still is the biggest thing. Is like for me, cybersecurity I would always say is like a puzzle. You're always trying to get that different piece to get still the final result of it. Whether it's in hacking, where every company is trying to secure themselves. If you're trying to do bug bounty, you're going against a company whose goal, their security team's goal, they're hired for is to secure the company. They're not going to knowingly leave vulnerabilities for you to then go find and get paid for. So they're being like, okay, I know that there's no vulnerabilities or maybe no vulnerabilities, but still challenging yourself to find one. The other mindset of that, like for example, when I do bug bounty is I go with the idea like this company is vulnerable no matter what. That gives you that mindset of just being curious with everything you see about that company, not taking it for face value when you're looking at source code or all of those, right? So translating that into bug bounty, like being curious is the biggest aspect to it. Same thing goes if you're driving more into like application level or application security level things. You still need to be curious for different programming languages. You could focus on one language and be really good at it for finding security issues, but you'll still need to learn like how do I translate that into a different language, different like server language, whatnot. But also adapting where it comes to AI now, where you might not have to manually learn all of these. You can use AI as like a coworker almost. It's people say like AI might replace different roles in security. It's still hard to do that. I think it'll be a lot more where it's a coworker. So that's where do not take AI as a challenge, adapt to it, grow from there. Adapting is the biggest part of cyber too.
Very much
So I
so.
would say curiosity, challenge, adaptation. Those three mindset is the biggest way to run from it.
Curiosity challenge. Hey. I'm gonna give you time to think about this one. I ask all my guests at the end of the podcast, give me the word of the year. I'm a big fan of doing a word of the year, like what your word of the year is. Don't say it now, real quick, and I'll add on to what you just prior said. Um, you and I are both actually. You're my first guest that has done Cyber Patriot as well, and I'm assuming
Nice.
CCDC in college.
No,
Um,
I did. I was close to doing CCDC. I ended up doing CPTC, which was something that came out of Uber's red team as well. So it's
uh,
collegiate penetration testing competition. And they do something like they do really well, similar to CCDC, where translating into professional life, where you have to go and present your findings. That was like
oh,
again, the same learning curve for me when I was in CPTC. It's like I can hack all of these. Now, how do I go and even in the writing the report, making it easier to understand? Because
yo,
the people judging it are actual pen testers from like various pen test companies, so they know what the report should look like. They know how you should calculate findings, and also being professional on the testing side of it. Like one thing I remember is if you were in CPTC in like let's say nationals, or even if you were competing at the local like regional level, they would have what they call injects, similar to
yep,
CCDC. And if you, let's say, they will say, hey, this server is sensitive. And if you start running scans against that server, you get dinged for it because you are a pen tester for that company. They're trusting you with it. If you take down their service, they're going to penalize for you in the scoring of it. So being that like going away from a mindset of I can just hack anything to like, okay, I can hack, but I need to be professional about it.
within the
Um,
realm.
so that was CPTC was like a great learning experience for me to translate all the hacking stuff to a professional experience of it.
Oh, I agree. I lean back on my CCTC competition, and I'm just like, oh, like
Yeah.
we have business injects and we have technical injects as
Yeah.
well. So like ours, like our business injects, I laugh because our team used to offload them to me all the time. I'm like, okay, I'll just give me 2 seconds. Boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. I'll say to add on to Rojan's prior comment, yeah, it's definitely a fun field to be out there and really understanding like business communication. In addition to that, I'll say when prepping for even analyzing businesses, understand the business objective and why they run. Everything is a product or a yield of a product or a
Yeah.
system, and understand why they have that. For some folks and some technical teams, when you're doing this whole one and two check, I'll say understand like their tech stack. I had some people be like, "Yo, I don't understand X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "Well, I can make some assumptions." And I did it using like OSAT, like essentially just looking at their LinkedIn, saying like, "Hey, I can tell that half your AppSec team is set to open to work." And based on their skill set, I'm assuming they're probably not looking here
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And bringing that knowledge into an interview and like using a framework, whether it's like economic, social, political, and understand like, hey, how do these systems, how does this firm operate in this industry
Yeah.
on these levels, can really bring another aspect of security to you and bringing that forward. Sorry, I got one of my little 15-minute reminder went off. Be like, okay, I'm a talker, so I'm gonna make sure I end on time for this one. Um, what do you think the future of cyber is going to look like in the next 5 years? Like, at least for your realm, your world. Like, I know that, for example, AI was being in the last 5 years of machine learning. Machines are going to change the world, and it's going to, how do
Yeah.
you now is how are we competing against agentic
Yeah.
agents like that? For me, in the GRC side, and I'll give you time to think about the answer while I tell my mind. Um, I think it's going to be how GRC becomes automated, how we start doing GRC in a very like AI as your coworker. I agree with you on that part. Like,
Yeah.
how can we bring GRC to the level of engineering where like I don't get looped in for every single like, hey, did we just violate compliancy? And
Yeah.
leaning towards the compliance as code as well as compliance as an interaction of like, hey, this PR here is gonna break PCI. I'm gonna need you to revert or insert A, B, and C method to make sure this is secure or not touch the system.
Yeah.
And being able to chat with essentially whatever the future frameworks are. I can't wait for PCI to have an MSP server, or MCP server that I can be like, hey,
Oh,
and talk to. Like, I'm really hoping because like the world, yes, compliance and cybersecurity are inherently against each other. Cybersecurity is very like pro against the system and like very like hey like figuring out we're seeing the merge of these worlds with GRC and understanding where freedom and privacy are
yeah.
and ensuring that we can protect it. Because at the same time, GRC, we can be the people that defend the world, but we can also be the people that might leak information. I'll be like, yes, everybody has to have a body cam. Everybody has to have a camera. Every metadata has to be tracked. and that can lead us into some situations. So I'm excited in the next 5 years to see how my field with GRC leans into like, hey, the new NIST standard, the new
Yep.
system recommendations under our current org, as well as how we reamp towards protecting the freedoms of the internet in the future. What about yours?
Yeah, I think AI is definitely impacting a lot more recently than before. And when it comes to offensive security and even pen test, it's like 2 years ago, you would give it a code, it will start hallucinating about what vulnerabilities it had. And now it's
Mm-hmm.
getting actually really good at one, identifying vulnerabilities, two, helping automate some of that. And we have seen like Anthropic has been pushing out research after research on either using their own language models to find vulnerabilities or detecting people to use like using cloud to try to automate vulnerability findings. So there's a lot of potential coming out of with the AIs. Like it may not replace roles, but it definitely changes the level of like knowledge you need to find vulnerabilities. So being able to use if you don't use AI and just fully focus on doing your manual research, you might still find the same vulnerability, but AI is going to make it faster. So at that point, you're competing with someone who is going to have an agentic resource to go and find vulnerabilities versus spending like 5 days to find it. It is going to speed up the process. We have seen it internally when we're testing things. Like as an example, even the simplest part, we sometimes will give it JavaScript, like minified JavaScripts of organization's web app, and then ask it to either find a vulnerability or tell us what it does, and then create like test ready suites for us to deploy. And it does really well on those. And it has helped find like critical vulnerabilities within 5 minutes. The other part is like, yeah, AI will be your coworker. Like one example I gave in a past talk I was doing was there was a live hacking event HackerOne was running, and one of the vulnerability that I found on it, which was a remote code execution for this large enterprise, 95% of the lift on that was AI. I saw a weird pattern. I told AI, like even ChatGPT, I was like, hey, like I'm seeing this. How do I escalate privilege here? It walked me through it. I would just copy paste what it was sending, make sure it was like secure when I was sending it in terms of I'm not deleting any data. I'm not trying to delete any data as part of PrivEsk. But in the end, when it got the RCE, it was all just based on ChatGPT's findings on it. I didn't have to do much except just saying like, "Hey, this looks weird. Tell me some more about it." And that ended up being like a 10.0 CVSS critical on that. So it definitely is a great resource. I would say use it, learn from it, keep expanding on the AI. Like if you're not jumping, it's gonna sound bad to say, but if you're not jumping on the AI bandwagon, you're gonna be left behind a little bit.
I
Uh,
agree.
Compared to where like the ML models were like a few years back, where yes, it helped a lot of security, but there was still a lot of human element. This has removed a lot of that human element from it.
Oh, definitely. I definitely agree on that part. I do have a question coming in from YouTube. This is a fun one. Um, I hope they used AI, maybe not. We'll see. It says you did a lot of what was your favorite vulnerability research that got a lot of attention? And what made you start looking at that like aspect of security for researching? I
So
think they're relating it to your CI/CD pipeline research.
most likely if it was like the GitHub related findings. So there was two aspects to it. One for me was like the GitHub Actions workflow research that I did at Match Group. One was something that was really fun. And exploit was it had more impact just because everyone was at that point when we started looking at GitHub Action workflows, everyone was like moving towards it. That was one of a replacer for existing CI/CD for a lot of orgs. And a little bit of a fun context on that was GitHub released Actions in 2019, almost around 2019, and that was like their first version. And during that time, as part of a bug bounty, I think live hacking event, I had started hacking on Actions during that and had paused on it. Then about 2021, started looking back into it, and it had changed significantly to what it was in 2019. So that it ended up becoming a lot more cool research just because of how like every organization was deploying it. There's a lot of impact. It translates directly to how I do security research usually is finding that one small like needle that everybody uses. It could be like a supply chain stuff. It could be a SaaS application that every customer of ours uses or every company uses. And then we go from there to say like, let's go and find a vulnerability, a misconfiguration here that could then impact all of these customers. Like for example, just about a year and a half ago, we started looking at like live chat systems, which is customer support systems, like when you're talking with AT&T, when you're talking with any other large organizations via just chat environments, most of these are relying on third-party applications. So we were looking at let's find one third party that everybody uses and investigate to see how they could be exploited. So we ended up like finding stuff out of that. The same thing goes for like the GitHub Action stuff. So hopefully that answered the question.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Um, Yo, I give you props. Someone's asking about how much of your time today is still with hacking, like resident hacker, based
Yeah.
off your that I'm assuming, and then how much time is your sorry, executive level functions versus your like, do you still have time to sit back and have a cup of tea and code?
I think coding and hacking is still a lot of majority part of it for my day to day, mainly because like outside of the pen test, the product that we build is heavily R&D focused. We need
Hmm.
to keep pushing out security research vulnerabilities that then goes deploys into like a customer's environment to look for findings. We also are embedded, like when we deploy the product, we are embedded into that instance so we can go and look for vulnerabilities for the customers. So it's a lot of like pattern finding. It's not as manual as before, where I was doing a lot of manual, like pen test related bug bounties too. It's more so automated of like, okay, let's go and look for how this customer is deploying XYZ. If we can find a vulnerability there, let's go and automate that for them. So still a lot of hands-on hacking and like fun part of cyber, still executive part, sales and stuff. There are days where it's easy to completely ignore sales and just go on hacking because that's the most fun part of it. But
Always.
I have to then keep reminding myself, like, no, I need to still do sales. I need to get customers. Otherwise, there's no point in hacking and finding these vulns because I still need to pay my salary.
Yes, that very true. We can't have him go. Bro, coffee, matcha every day type of thing.
Exactly.
I can answer this one. Someone asked, "Are the G Suite misconfigurations that you gave a talk on still available today?" LOLO. The answer is yes. Rojan just audited my own G Suite.
Yep.
And I'm not
There's
saying
G
I would
Suite
have to do
stuff.
grinding.
G Suite stuff is still there. Like the OG misconfigurations still exist around like docs, sites, and all of that. Groups has way more attack surface now than previously I looked at. So we have a couple more talks or in blog posts coming out. I did a talk last year around Google Groups. That's where we're talking in B-side
In the
Seattle.
space
I was
needle.
just going at Alejandro about like I have this great finding in G Suite that everyone's vulnerable to. And I was just telling him about it, but we haven't blogged about it yet. So we're probably going to release a finding report on it once we do. I believe we're doing another talk on that more expanded this year. Once we finish that, then we'll include that into a blog post and a video. So there's way more attack surface with Google Group.
Please reshare it with us. I'm pretty sure I'll let this person, I'll copy it to their Discord and be like, here you go. Because for
Awesome.
y'all, let me set the scene. Rose and I were at the top of the Space Needle after a Hacker One event. And we were both talking about, like, what really grinds your gears? And we both hit on the G Suite issue. And then we just
Yep.
went in. My,
Yep.
like,
I think that was my first, like when we first started talking, even in the B-side Seattle, the happy hour we met up, we're like talking about, you're like, yeah, like, what are you doing a talk on? Because I mentioned I was doing a talk and I said, oh, I'm like talking about this
oh,
Google Group vulnerability that everyone has.
and
And
it
you're
set me
like,
on.
I
Yeah.
use Google Group at work. Don't tell me anything right now about this. And I'm like, okay. And that's where it all started from too for us.
Yeah, because I think I was saying something about I had just mentioned something about GCL. They were retiring the GCLI tool, and I was like, "Why? All my automations run off this tool. Like, you gotta be kidding me! Like, I'm tired of Google. Like, can't. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna shame in case they sponsor us later. Google, please sponsor us. We would love that. We'd pay for our G workspace for the whole year. We'll talk. I'll see you at RSA. Or actually, no, I will see you at the Mic conference this year. um. Yeah, GCLI, I think I don't think they ended up retiring. I think they just said they're gonna put service back because they got a lot of pushback for saying they're gonna retire the tool.
Maybe.
Uh, I'll double check, but yeah, we met on that. We started talking about that and griping. Yeah. I'll add on when you're networking stuff. Like I know a lot of other programs and other pathways are saying like, "Hey, get out there, get certified, start doing the basic cert stuff like that." I'm like, I think that pathway has gone away in recent years of just getting a certification and entering the workforce. I think now a better way in is just get into tech into general IT help desk, get that experience as fast as you can so you get that exposure. Like mind you, I didn't start doing GCLI just because I was doing security. I started it with IT help desk and system admin where I'm like, yo, I have over 18 different Google workspaces and like over 1,000 plus users across each one, and I got to figure out how to quickly mass edit emails, change domains, edit Google group security group rules, like you know, disable G Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, going to the employee lifecycle. Employee lifecycle, like accessing docs, moving them, making sure it's compliant towards PCI and everything else, and really talking about it. So yeah, getting that experience really helps you. And then ironically, you'll meet a Rojan and you'll bond over how much like you hate an X product or you dislike. I can't use hate. You dislike an X product because again, sponsor. Gotta get that monetization money. And move through. But okay, before I close our call, because we have 5 minutes left in time. I asked you two questions. Word of the year, and then I forgot the other one, but like word of the year and advice type of stuff.
This is gonna sound a little pessimistic, but I'm gonna say fire is gonna be word of the year. The reason behind that, we just like looking at LinkedIn of folks talking about the new models coming out of Anthropic and how good they are with security research. We're gonna see like one thing people mentioned before is internet that we know of is bad in general. There's vulnerabilities everywhere. It's just it needed people to manually go and find it. And now we're going to see a lot of automations coming in that are finding like 0 day CVEs. Like if we think about from like just 2 years, 3 years ago of the Log4j incident that happened, we're going
Yeah,
to see like 10x of those, I think, this year of just people because now like you have these large code bases that a lot of the organizations are built on top of. Nobody has audited them just because of how large the code space is. It just needs like some person going manually, just being crazy enough. But now with AI, it makes it faster. Like we go back to 2 months ago with React, and there being like two criticals on them that popped off. Everyone was exploiting. As it was being exploited, people were using LLM models to find bypasses to like the WAF that were being set
explanation.
up.
Yep.
And then we had like two other high severity findings that came out, and the researcher who one of the researcher who found it was like, yeah, I was using like AI to help me guide through reversing this patch they had done for this exploit, but it ended up finding a completely different vulnerability, which was like a high severity impact already. And just knowing that like React, everybody uses it. It's been in the use for a while, but
Yep.
nobody had found it, even though it existed there. It's because again, it previously needed someone to be crazy enough, say, I'm going to spend 2 weekends to go and find vulnerabilities in React. Now it's like we just need one person to be like, I'm just going to use this Opus model and then go and find a vulnerability in the next 30 minutes or an hour.
And I call it Opus plus $50. If I
Yeah.
can break your stuff with Opus plus $50 of overage charges, how
Yes.
much do you want to? Yeah,
Yeah.
like
It's gonna be where a lot of the offensive part is gonna get automated, which is scary, but also
mhm.
in a sense good because it's going to prepare us to secure our platforms more and it's going to like those vulnerabilities already exist. Some of these already like have been there for the last 2 3 years. He's just is making it easier to find them. But as a result of that, organizations are going to be in more pressure to patch them as it comes out. And then also the reason I say fire is for any defensive teams to now have to balance all the vol management findings they're getting of saying you have this 100 findings you have to fix, and then you get dropped another critical that's actually exploitable in your environment. It's gonna create a lot of like the issues within the orgs of just consistently patching things or then trying to catch up on new findings. So that's gonna create a lot more stress.
Mm, I can see that. That's actually a pretty good one. That's you have me thinking about that too, because it's like, oof, that's some knowledge right there. That's a good mic drop on that
Yeah.
part because I'm like, I to add on to it, just as me like going down a rabbit hole, I think there's going to be a separation of internet. There's going to be a private internet and a public internet more coming through, where networks will somehow either pay to play that will have non AI or supposedly non AI entrance of like, hey,
Interesting.
here's this like more human side, and then the public internet AI, which will be like, I think we're going to about to pay to play to have human written knowledge and like organic knowledge, and then the rest of the world will still be public, scrapable, and very much iterated quickly on by AI.
Yeah.
That you're gonna have people craving for like some sort of blue sky or some sort of like,
Yeah.
hey, this is actual material written by another human, not yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's actually an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, because you're. I think the next part is that we've shown that with the lack of regulations coming with AI and the encouragement by the USA government to not regulate AI, it's ending up everywhere that every other industry is no longer like no AI. Even you finance. finance is one of the biggest, oldest movers when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
And you now have the AICPA and PCI being like, we will talk about standards coming March 15th. Like everyone is waiting for March 15th just to see this new updated PCI DDS and be like, what are we doing? How are we doing it?
Yeah.
What's the new rules? AI? Are we allowing agents? Like, how do we allow shopping and stuff like that via AI agents? And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, and like we're not supposed to gate it away. How do we incorporate it? How do we encourage it to move forward? So like, okay, I think you're gonna lead to a divide, like a digital divide. That's gonna be like, hey, here is either segregation or some sort of level of just like this is for like either Commonwealth or welfare. It's gonna be a lot. My
Yeah.
word of the year was noise. Um,
That's a good
so
one too.
yeah, I think with the whole noise coming from different sectors, from people like we're going through a very, I want to say more chaotic than normal time in the
Yeah.
industry where we're gonna see false positives, quick iterations on like AI and agentic, like especially Log4j. I'm trying to encourage as many people as I can, like, hey, ES2 just no ES1 just went down last month. You had a lot of people who couldn't access AWS command line and couldn't access AWS console, but like we in disaster recovery, we focus so much on being multi-region, multi-this,
Yeah.
but we're all locked into a single vendor. And this is not me being like multi-cloud. Hey, hey. This is me being like, make sure you can pivot quickly and fast if you need
Yeah.
to, and like, I don't have the money to right now, but I can in a couple. Actually, I'm not. Let me not comment about my work, but in my other personal projects, yeah, I have a kill switch or a circuit breaker here and there to be like, hey, let's go from AWS to GCP, or vice versa, or even hey, all if my cloud instance and I don't pay and it gets shut down, switch back to my home lab here
Yeah.
and start routing requests locally. If I see an uptick in my internet traffic and Xfinity sends me my email if you've exceeded your 1 terabyte, I'm like, hey, here you go. But okay, it is officially 3 o'clock PST, 4 o'clock CST, and 6 o'clock East Coast. So I'm gonna wrap us from going over and stop me from rambling. Rojan, thank you so much for joining me for this last hour. I always
No worries.
appreciate it. I can't wait to see you at B Sides, Seattle and SF, right? Uh,
Yes.
yeah. Do you have? Oh, hold on. I give everybody a chance to plug their socials if they want to, or plug. Where can people find you today? What do you want to promote anytime?
I would just say LinkedIn is probably the best resource. That's where I'm active the most now. Or yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best way because I have all of my contact information there. I usually respond to messages there, so that'll be the easiest way to do it.
Perfect. Don't overwhelm them if you can't. But send questions as well.
Yeah,
Actually, you
100%.
have more followers than I do now. So yeah, send him the messages, blow him up, add him on trending, make him the most your secondary most viewed on the profile type of thing.
That's
Um, Thank you again for spending an hour with me, man. I always appreciate it. I love when we get together and chop it up for a little bit. You always bring news perspectives, and I'm always like, yo, dang, like
yeah.
you're right. Like I'm gonna walk away being like, I'm not gonna sleep on that flight tonight. I'm gonna have to think about this and make sure it doesn't impact me somewhere. For all the Aspire students who are watching at home, please do your homework. And if there's any questions you need to ask them on Discord. We're looking forward to the conference happening at the end of March. I hope to see you there if you can. This is our second to last session. I got to double check the March one and see if we're still doing it, but Ralph will probably slack me that later and make sure I'm on point. Um, we're looking forward to the new training center. Make sure you keep an eye on the newsletter for that. For those of us who are joining us from the newsletter, feel free to join the Discord, chat with us. We have the barbecue, we have the Mike Lead happy hour, we have all the happy hours where these are not recorded, they're offline. It's a chat between all of us, just saying hello and ranting about our cybersecurity needs for the day, the week, or the year. However, wherever I see you, I can't wait to see you again. I hope you have a great day, y'all. I'm gonna close the live stream and we'll wrap it up. Let
Awesome.
me